Welcome into the Grace Point Daily Podcast. My name's Jeremiah Johnson. It is, as always, going to be a verse by verse with Dr. R.B. Maynard. Excited to get into the Word with you. Grace Point Daily Podcast. We exist to bring you daily encouragement for your daily walk with Christ. Thank you for all of you that are listening. And we've been a little inconsistent, Dr. R.B. Maynard. Yeah. But we've had Thanksgiving and some COVID and not us, but friends. And so anyway, and those of you in the Grace Point family, we continue to extend our prayers to old Kelly Stevens, a.k.a. Leckley Shepens today, believing for full recovery. I was telling the MCDs the other day, I did not last night, the night before last night, I had a dream that Kelly was like up and we were hanging out. I don't remember what we're doing. It was one of those dreams where he was in it and he was fully well, and I can't remember what we're doing. We were just hanging out and having fun and laughing, and so I woke up and I was like, well, I'll take that as a God dream. Like,
right. I've gone
fully
from
better.
You know, there for a little while, I would catch myself saying, if Kelly comes home, you know, and I've corrected myself to say, when Kelly comes home, this is going to happen. So,
amen.
So yeah, I miss him.
Verse by verse, we get into the Word. So we hope if you're sitting there, you know, you can crack open the Bible if you're in your car or at the gym or whatever, or, you know, don't do that. But follow along with us today. But before we do that, last week we celebrated Dr. R.B. Maynard's birthday.
Yes.
And tell us about that little aftermath of.
Well, I got
all that was your birthday.
I usually ask for something every year. I make a big deal about, you know, asking for. I'm not afraid to ask for gifts, and so
ask and you shall receive.
This year, I thought, you know, the most rare gift and expensive gift somebody could buy was toilet paper.
Yeah,
and so I got a nice gift from Donna Lynn of I think 5 rolls of toilet paper.
Nice. Was it the good stuff or?
Well, I haven't got to it yet, so I'm not sure.
Do you go big on? Do you go big personally? Do you go big on the toilet paper, like the? What do they call 10 ply?
I don't like. I know this is.
It does make a difference.
Yeah, it does matter. You use way more of the cheap stuff. We always go
cheap, but I mean, man, when you get that expensive stuff,
it'll spoil you.
Speaking of that, I noticed your demeanor towards me was just slightly off this last week, and I figured it probably was because I didn't get you anything. Yeah. But I was busy. I knew that the day before was your birthday, and I didn't have time to scramble the store, and then it was the podcast, and I felt very awkward. So before we got to get into it, I got to give my gifts to you today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, man.
It's kind of like similar to the MCD Christmas party next Tuesday, Modern Christian Dad's Christmas Party Edition. It's going to be great.
Well, okay. It's a good thing you got something because, you know, your Christmas bonus is coming up.
Yes. And so I did get you toilet paper. That was the first thing that I got. Yes. Strong and soft. 2-ply. Uh-oh.
Oh, man. 2-ply. I'll just use twice as much.
All right. I got you this movie. I've never seen it before. It was kind of off the cheap rack, but it's called 2047 Virtual Revolution. But 24/7 being prophetic, like that's how long I want you to live.
Okay, 2047. That's another 27 years. I could.
So you'd be how old?
91.
There you go. That's my perfect. He's going to live till he's 91. Okay. 2047.
I'll watch this movie, and by then I can watch it over and over because I'll forget it every time. So
his first viral video was on plungers.
Yes.
So I remember that you have, someone in your house you were doing had a thing for plungers.
It was. I found a bunch of plungers in the house, so I did a series.
On
plungers. Yeah.
It was amazing. Go check that out. I think it's still on his Facebook page. Even Alexa watched that clearly.
Really?
So,
man,
check out his old school videos. You can find those on your Facebook page. Your old school plunger videos.
Probably. Right. I don't know whether they're still there or not.
Let's see. Oh, we found this. The boys and I found this. It's a first responder ambulance car.
Oh, man.
Because we know you were a first responder back in the day.
I was.
So there you go.
I've never seen an ambulance pulling a trailer.
Yeah, right.
That's for extra bodies, I suppose.
Okay.
So.
Let's see here. This one was my idea, not the boys' idea, but this is a lizard that grows 600%.
Wow.
So you submerge this in water. Have you seen these before?
I have not seen that.
So if you submerge this in water, you got to do it for like a week. You put it like in a bucket. The boys have done this, and it'll grow 600%.
Wow.
But if you listen to verse by verse with Dr. R.B. Maynard, we guarantee your spiritual life will grow at least 600%.
Wow. I should put this in the bathtub and let Stella come home and see it growing by 600%.
All right. It's a guarantee. It is a money back guarantee. If you listen to the Grace Point Daily podcast, your spiritual life will grow 600%. Yep. I got you the good old $1 million. $1 million.
Are they Trump dollars? Or are they? Yeah. No, not Trump dollars, but man, I'm going to try to use those someplace.
And I forgot why I bought this. I don't know why. When I was driving here today, I was looking through all the gifts, and I was like, I think my intention was to say that we level each other out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So there you go. A leveler.
Level-headed.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to Dr. R.B. Maynard.
On this $1 million, do I have to pay tithes on that? I don't know if that's.
Yeah. I mean, whatever.
If that's tithe worthy or not. I'll drop a little in the box.
So where did I? Oh, that's an air horn. I can't find my other cheesy sound effect right now.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Happy birthday to Rick Maynard.
Exciting.
One more time. All right. And you can still give him Christmas presents or birthday presents.
Right.
Still available. So there you go. Happy birthday, Dr. R.B. Maynard.
Thank you.
To you.
I appreciate that.
Restoration has now occurred.
Yep.
Let's get in the word.
That was the best, man. I mean, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gifts.
Yeah.
6 gifts. Wow. One for every.
And who can put a price on friendship too? You know.
Right. You know, pastors shouldn't be friends with people in their congregation. Haven't you heard that?
Yeah, that's probably why I'm not as successful as I could be. But you know.
Well, I said when you said that Roy and Larry Lynn loved you.
Yeah.
And you weren't. I was a little leery about loving you because they're both gone now. So that I'm gonna maybe back off on my love for you. So.
Okay, there we go. Okay. The celebration is now officially ended. Although we celebrate Dr. R.B. Maynard every episode, every single day.
Yes.
Right, Stella? If you're watching.
Yes. She may be driving right now, so she could be watching. Who knows?
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay. This is not very good. Not a very good verse to start out on for a happy occasion of my birthday. But we are in 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 35. And again, we're always starting in the middle of something. So this says, "By the word of the Lord, one of the sons of the prophets said to his companion." So this, when it talks about sons of the prophets, it's not literally a son, but maybe a student of the prophets. It says, "Strike me with your weapon," but the man refused. This is 35 and 36. "So the prophet said, because you have not obeyed the Lord, as soon as you leave me, a lion will kill you. And after the man went away, a lion found him and killed him." Now this is another one of those strange stories of the Bible. I mean, that just seems like, why would you ask somebody to hit you and they won't do it, and so their punishment is to die by a lion? I mean, you come along Sunday morning and you say, "Dr. R.B. Maynard, I want you to come up here on the platform and I want you to hit me as hard as you can." Mm-hmm. Now, I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And, well, okay then. When you leave here, a lion is going to, or, I guess it wouldn't be so much, probably you're going to die in a car wreck on the way home. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it just seems so out of, out of balance. But I think there's a lot of emphasis on the prophet and the words from the prophet and how strong they were back then. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this recently. I believe right now we have a lot more false prophets than any other time. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with the election, with all the lawsuits and all of that, but I mean, it looks like a done deal to me, and I know God can intervene, and I understand all that. But we had a lot of prophets. Yeah. Donald Trump will be president.
Right. And I actually, to digress to that for a second, my wife sent me a link of a whole video of a guy. I forget his name. Anyway, and I really liked it, appreciated it, and he was still steadfast that Donald Trump's going to win through the Supreme Court.
Right.
And I guess, because we've kind of said, maybe some of the prophets should be, hey, we kind of missed it.
Right.
But he was so adamant that, don't say that I'm And so I appreciate that boldness. And, again, I kind of walk, because the thing about prophecy and the prophets, which again, I completely understand, is prophecy should be kind of weird. Because even this modern day prophet, if you will, was sharing, I had a vision and I was flying over, and it's, a lot of prophecies just sound weird.
Right.
We have to be, and that's, again, I hope people don't get offended by it, but like, it's my whole take on Christmas. Like, you literally believe in a God who impregnated a teenage girl, right? Like, just if you say it like that, sounds like,
Yeah, I know.
That sounds weird. But we literally believe in that story.
Right.
And so prophecy, I still to this day take it with a grain of salt. So I'm not a hater, but then who is prophet, not prophet, because, this guy is so I am right. I am right. The Lord told me I am right. Maybe I don't know. I guess I would. Well, I believe strongly God has spoken to me at times, but anyway, I just think it's prophecy so interesting.
It's very
to receive, and
it's dangerous to be a prophet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're either on or you're off, and the problem with it is with the prophet. In this case, it was very adamant to say, as soon as you leave me, a lion will kill you. After the man went away, a lion found him and killed him. I mean, it was very emphatic in the fact that what this prophet said came to pass. I mean, and that is what we say, the test of a prophet, if it comes to pass. But the problem is, with one false prophecy, and especially people who are a little on the fence about the prophetic, some people think we don't have prophets today. So if you're a little on the fence, if a guy misses it, then the next time he has a prophecy, you're going to think maybe and maybe not. He didn't get that other one right. Maybe this one's not right either. So it really ruins your reputation. That's probably not the right word, but it ruins your reputation as a prophecy if it doesn't happen.
And there were lots of false prophets then too, because we get to read the right one.
Right.
But because that's what today, I know the one guy, he's the Assemblies of God pastor, David, was it Coverstone or something like that? Yeah, he's the one who prophesied about the calendar, and he got severe hatred from a lot of the prophets of the day.
Right.
So, but I was kind of like, well, who are you guys to say? I guess at the other turn, I'm always kind of like, well, who are you to say you are the only guys who can hear from the Lord? I can hear from the Lord. I can prophesy. I can. So, man, what a tough balance.
Right.
I want to be, but the bottom line for me is I want to be sensitive to it. I think when people say it's a prophetic word and things from the Lord, I never want to just toss them out, even if it's from, if I feel it's something a little bit ridiculous,
right,
and just try and take hold of it and say, God, speak truth to me.
Well, the Bible says he who honors the prophet will receive a prophet's reward. I mean, there is a not a pedestal, but there is an honor for a prophet. The same as the man of God, that when you honor them, you'll receive the reward that they receive for it. So anyway, we won't belabor that, but this is a weird prophecy. But verse 37, the prophet found another man and said, "Strike me, please." So the man struck him and wounded him. The Hebrew reading that says the man hit him with blows and bruises. So maybe more than once. So it wasn't a matter of, when he said strike me, it wasn't a matter of like kill me. It was, this was all a setup, and we'll get there, but it was all a setup for what you would call a parable. It was a setup just like David with Nathan, when Nathan came and said, there was this guy who had a sheep and somebody stole his sheep, and he went, and then he said to David got all mad, about that. Wow, I can't believe that guy ought to die, for what he's done. And then he's like, you are that man. So, so sometimes parables were not just a story about, farming or whatever, but they made a parable to make a point of someone. Yeah. We all say things like, you ought to practice what you preach. Well, that's what's happening here in some of these cases. So, 20:38, then the prophet went and stood by the road waiting for the king. He disguised himself with his headband down over his eyes. The King James says with ashes on his face. a headband, whatever, to cover some of the injuries or whatever. And that's the other thing. This prophet was willing to be beat up in order to emphasize the word of the Lord. You know what? I mean, again, would you listen if God said, okay, Pastor Jeremiah, you know, I want you to go out and get beat up.
Yeah.
Because I've got this sermon I want you to preach, and you need to be beat up in order for it to make the correct emphasis. I mean, we'd be like, Lord, really? I mean, that's not God. You know? I mean, we think strange things. The Bible's full of all kinds of strange things. You just mentioned that there's weird ways that things happen. But then today we think that if it's strange, well, that's why would God need to do that? And I've been guilty, and I don't know if you have, but we've been guilty of Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn does some weird stuff, and I read one of his books one time, and the one thing he said was, you know, God tells me to do this stuff, and it's not about the show; it's about my obedience. It has nothing to do with whether that person's going to be healed with that or without it or any of those things. But he said, God tells me to do this. And so it's all about me being obedient to God. It's not about the show. You know, and there's still people sitting at home maybe looking at this like, that's not true. It is about the show. You know, he's making a show of it.
Well, I mean, and again, Christmas season, I was reading Zechariah the other day, and you read through Zechariah and you're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the visions that are unfolding, and imagine being him processing that and explaining that, and you know, and even in the visions, he's like, what does this mean? You know, he's asking the angels, and
right.
I don't know, like, what is all this supposed to be? You know, and even he captured a portion of it, but still, not even the greatest extent of it to its fullness.
Right. Yeah. The Bible. I mean, honestly, the Bible is weird. I mean, there's weird stories. There's. I'm ahead in my study. I'm in 2 Kings, but the story of Naaman, and it, you know, the prophet Elisha says, "Go dip in the Jordan." I mean, Naaman's got leprosy. He says, "Go dip in the Jordan River 7 times, and you'll be healed." And he gets all mad about it because why? Because he thought Elisha would just say, "In the name of Jesus, be healed," and all of his leprosy would go away. But there was something, I don't know if it was about all the faith that was required or what it was, but that's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you have to go to the Jordan? I mean, and the Jordan's like dirty water. Yeah. And he's like, well, I've bathed in better water than the Jordan, and that didn't heal me. Why would I think going to the Jordan would heal? I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And so God frequently does some crazy things to us are crazy. We're not calling God crazy this morning, but to us, there's some crazy things out there. But 20:39, as the king passed by, the prophet called out to him, "Your servant went into the thick of battle, and someone came to me with a captive and said, 'Guard this man. If he is missing, it will be your life for his life, or you must pay a talent of silver.'" So this is all about this parable. He's not telling lies here any more than Nathan. Nathan was telling a story that appeared to be true in order to make a point, and that's what this is here. He's telling a story. There was no man brought to him and told him to guard him or anything. This is a story that he's using to make a point. It says, "While your servant was busy here and there, the man disappeared. That is your sentence," the king of Israel said. "You have pronounced it on yourself." In other words, you know, you agreed to guard this guy, so now you have to die or pay the penalty. That was his. And it's not really, well, let's read on, verse 41. Then the prophet quickly removed the headband from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. And so this is your, what I call the oh no moment. He takes that headband off, and he's heard this story, and I think it dawns on him then what that story's about. It's about him. It's about what you have done, and I think that's that moment where you see the prophet, and it's like, oh no, you know, he knows something about me, and this story he's telling was not it was a story.
Yeah.
In other words, I've pronounced a sentence on myself now.
Yeah.
And I've talked about back before this goes back before the Hensons were here. The Smiths were here. And Mary Alice Smith, she died, I think, a year and a half ago, something like that. But anyway, she was one of those women. I wouldn't call her a prophet, but it was just like she just knew stuff. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was my guilty conscience too, part of it. But it was like if I was doing things I shouldn't do on Saturday night, when I saw her, it was just like she would look at you like, I know what you did last night, and and then she's one of those, if you ever doubt, and different people are all over the place with speaking in tongues. Some people are crazy about it. Other people are, it's a very personal, there's Baptists who speak in tongues. We say, the Baptists don't believe in speaking. There's Baptists who speak in tongues. There's
Charismatic Catholics.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place. But I've always said, if I ever had any doubt about the reality of speaking in tongues, you just need to be around her for a minute. I mean, I remember one time she came here to visit, and I'd kind of forgot about that. I mean, I grew up with her and knew how she was, but I'd kind of forgot about it. And she gave a message in tongues in the church, and it was just, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like it almost gave you chills. It was that kind of a groaning, word coming, not like sometimes people, and I'm not saying anybody else is not legitimate either.
Yeah.
But there was something about her that it's like, man, when she speaks, and I guess this is a shout out to Katie.
Okay.
But Katie, when she prays, there's a groaning in her spirit sometimes.
Yeah.
That you feel, and sometimes those are the kind of people. It's like, man, I want them praying for me. They go deep in their concern and their compassion, and so anyway, these strange things, these prophetic words. There are people who have that gift, and I believe I could be given. I'm not saying God gives gifts and takes them away, but sometimes gifts are for a temporary time. Sometimes you get gifts that you can eat. In real life, you eat it and then the gift is gone. And other times you get things like, money, and I mean, those are eternal.
Yep.
So.
But, I mean, that plunger you're going to use for the rest of your life.
I will use that for the rest of my life. I'm gonna put your name on it, so every time I use it, I'll think of you.
Or you just put your ice cream in it and just bowl. It could be a bowl.
Yeah, well, I'll be sure I do that before I use it. Yeah, that would not be good. So, but anyway, this was that oh no moment for the prophet realizing that he's talking to him. So verse 20, 42, and 43, he said to the king, "This is what the Lord says." Now we read this maybe last week. I'm not sure. I read this ahead of time because we were making the point that all this is going to come true. This is what the Lord says: "You have set free a man I had determined to die. Therefore, it is your life for his life, your people for his people." And that's what the king had just said to him. This is your sentence, the king. You have pronounced it yourself. So it's that turnaround now that the prophet says to him. And if you read ahead, the guy with the lion, that happened immediately. It says, he said that to him, he goes out, he dies. Some of these things, and that's what people don't realize about the prophetic word too, it's not always instant.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we have the book of Revelation.
Yep.
I mean, that's a book for future times.
Yep.
Hopefully coming soon.
Yeah.
But that's for future times. That's for thousands of years later in some of these prophetic. Yep. The birth of Christ was prophesied, but it didn't happen. They were looking for it, but it didn't happen right away.
Yeah.
And so in chapter 22 is when his life is taken. In 2 Kings 8:12 is when his family life is taken. So it's years later. I don't have that time frame, but years later that those prophetic words come true. And so somebody has said we talked about the prophecy about Donald Trump being president again. Mm-hmm. Well, some people said maybe it's not for now. Maybe it's 4 years from now. Mm-hmm. He'll run again and be president again. I know we can get, well, that's pretty far-fetched. Well, is it? All this stuff is far-fetched. So, yeah. And in 2020, if I've learned anything, it's to believe anything.
Yeah, right.
That's one thing I've learned. But
and I guess I'd have to flesh this out with more examples. But I have said before too that I believe that if it's truly a God thing, there's always a multi-generational aspect to what God is doing. Mm-hmm. And literally in everything that God does. I could take that. I mean, I could go to the extreme of it. I could. Of something as simple as when we remodeled our sanctuary. Mm-hmm. That wasn't for one moment, but it was a multi-generational thing that we did. That everything God is doing and speaking goes well beyond just, if it's the Lord, it has an effect that goes well beyond that moment.
Right, and for the good or bad. Yeah. I mean, this guy's like, you're going to suffer consequences, and your family's going to suffer the consequences of what you've done. And I love this. It says, sullen and angry, the king of Israel went to his palace in Samaria. I mean, I just wrote down some of the different wording. The sullen and angry is heavy and displeased, dejected and upset, angry and agitated, loss of enthusiasm or desire for anything. I mean, this is the king. I mean, and I know today, I don't know that I've ever really seen a president cry. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe somebody could say, well,
George Jr.? Did George Bush Jr. cry? 9/11?
Maybe at 9/11. I'm not sure. But I think it's probably like in their presidential training. Yeah. Things that are good, things that don't ever do this. Yeah. I would bet that they would say to the president, don't ever cry. Don't ever let people see you cry, because you are the leader, and that shows weakness. That shows like you don't know what to do.
That's what they said. That's what they said. They being who I don't know. Right. Like when Donald Trump got COVID-19, they said he went to the hospital before, while he could still walk to the helicopter in his own strength. Right. Because how bad would that look if he had to go by ambulance or? So they said he went, and so he could still look. Right. Hey, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Whether who knows to the extent of how bad he got.
Looking presidential. Yeah. That's and I don't know if they've ever. I don't know about the presidents if they've ever felt like crying and had to. But for me, if somebody told me, hey, don't ever cry in your Sunday school. Don't ever cry when you get in the pulpit. Well, there's not been many times that I just broke down and wept.
Sure.
But I got choked up, and sometimes it's unexpected. I mean, it's not like I was studying Sunday school class and it's like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to say this without crying. It's usually like just out of the blue, I'm talking about something and whatever just overwhelms me for the moment and I just get choked up. I have to gather myself sometimes. So, but this is the king not acting very presidential. And one of the things that there was a little bit of a turning point in this because the statement said he used to repent and turn back to God. Now, Ahab was never, he's a hypocrite. Ahab is the kind of guy who, I serve God, but he also served Baal. I do this, but I also do this. So he was never fully serving God, but it was like he was one of those guys that you didn't give up on. It's like, man, don't give up. I mean, you've known those kind of guys that are like, man, are they ever gonna fully turn to God? They're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. What's going to be the final decision? And this is where the statement was made that he felt like that God had rejected him at this point. In other words, you did something here, now God's done with you, kind of thing, kind of moment. It's not the truth. We know that God's never done with us. He never says that to you or me. I reject you because of the things you've done. that's not the case, but it does get to the point sometimes where God knows that, hey, there's no coming back. He's not coming back again. This is it. And the sad thing is what happens with, if we feel like God's rejected us, and I've been in church my whole life, but I've had those moments where I'm like, where is God? And almost like, and God forgive me before I say it, but we're almost like, God, who do you think you are? I saw one time a poster, and it was just an interesting concept, but it was in the heavens, and there was a table set up, and God's sitting on one side, and Satan was sitting on the other side, and there was a chess set.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept was, devil makes a move, mm-hmm. God has to counteract the move, or God makes the move and Satan has to do something to try to counteract that.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we get that feeling that we're just pawns, being moved around, mm-hmm. manipulated. And so, Kelly Stevens right now, I mean, I do not understand it.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there understands it, you just call in and explain to me.
Yeah.
Because I do not understand. There's all kinds of things about that we won't get into all the will of God and all of these things, but I just don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
And for Belinda right now, could feel like God has rejected Kelly.
Right.
Like it's a punishment.
I mean, I told God the other day, I'm like, Lord, there's other people. I actually have a list of,
mm-hmm.
other people you could take first. If you
yeah. Well, it is, why do the righteous suffer?
You're not on that list, by the way.
Yeah, well, I can tell by the gifts today. But so this is, it's a weird story, this whole story, but you have the king here who's, God rejected me, so I'll show him. I'll just reject him. If God's not going to do what I need him to do, God let me, we all say that, God made me poor. God made me sick. God mm-hmm. did these. So I'll just show God, and I'll never go to church again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'll show God. I'm just going to go to the bars, and I'm going to hang out with the women, and I'm going to do all the stuff that would have been fun, but because of Christianity, I haven't been doing. Yeah. Now I'm just a
little bit of a Solomon attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's all meaningless, so I'll just do whatever I want to do anyway. Then
that's
Lord.
Right. That's right. So anyway, we'll stop there. That's the end of the chapter anyway.
I think the two prophetic takeaways from today are, number one, you're going to grow 600% in your
mm-hmm.
spiritual life.
There you go.
That's a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Rick Maynard, Dr. R.B. Maynard
mm-hmm.
is going to die in 2047.
2047.
91 years. I wouldn't want to live any longer than that.
Hey, if I keep deteriorating like I have, I don't want to be 91. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. R.B. Maynard, Verse by Verse, Grace Point Daily podcast. Tell everyone about it. Listen to it. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.